All right, so if you will, make sure that 16 at the top, just mark it out. That's from last year. All right, I did, and the date is also from last year. So let's see, today is not the 18th. Today is 9/12/19. All right. When we're adding and subtracting fractions, the number one thing we have to remember is that fractions must have the same denominator. I want to underline that word, denominator, to add and subtract. So we're going to underline denominator. Denominator is which part?
The bottom.
The bottom. So if you didn't remember that, you might want to write under here, denominator is the bottom number. Okay. So on number 1 it says 3/8 minus 1/8. Can I subtract those right now? Yeah, my bottom number matches, so I'm good. So on the top, 3 minus 1 is? 2. Good, because I tried to add and put 4. And then on the bottom, 8 minus 8, do I have to do that? No, we wanted them to match, so we're going to keep that matching number. So I get 2/8. Is that a good way to leave my answer? No. Anytime you have a fraction, we want to simplify. What number can I divide those by? 2. And guys, for my notes, I want to write down what it is that I'm doing exactly. Has anyone ever looked back at their math and been like, how did I get that number? Where did it come from? All right? It happens a lot. It's easy to do. So I'm always going to write down what I'm dividing by in my notes. You do not have to do this on your homework. The problem happens on your homework is if you get something wrong and you ask me about it, and I'm like, hey, Owen, what did you divide by? And he's like, I don't know. I didn't write it down. All right, that's the reason that we do want to write it down. So if we make a mistake, that's how we're going to be able to find it. If you just did it in your head, by tomorrow you're going to forget what you did. All right? So 2 divided by 2 gives me 1, and 8 divided by 2 gives me 4. So that's going to be my final answer there. Easy peasy. As long as those bottom numbers match, it's usually not a problem. All right. Let's look at number 2. Number 2, can I add those right now? No, my bottom numbers do not match. What would be a good way to make them match? Tucker? I can multiply 3 times 3. If I do 3 times 3, what number will that give me there? 9. A 9. Now with fractions, we can do it to the bottom as long as I do it to the top. So we have to do times 3 on the top as well. Does anyone know the reason I'm allowed to do that? Taylor? Anyone know the reason I'm allowed to multiply by 3/3? All right. You agree if I'm doing the bottom and the top, that's 3/3, correct? What's 3/3 equal to? 1. Does multiplying by 1 actually change anything? No. So it looks like our fraction is changing, but I'm multiplying by 1, so is it really? No. It just looks different. All right, so on the top I have 2 times 3, which is? 6. Y'all, thank you. Y'all are going to need to definitely call out because I almost wrote the wrong number again. And then on the bottom, 3 times 3 is? 9. And I do want us to write that out. I want to see what you're actually adding. Even on your homework, I want you to write out what it is you're adding, okay? So now can I add them up? 6 plus 2 is? 8. 9, we just leave it there. Okay, can I simplify that one? So that is my answer. Okay. All right, moving down. 3/4 plus 5 6. What is a good denominator for 4 and 6? There are a lot of options. What's the best option? The best option, Delaney? 12. The smallest number that 4 and 6 can both multiply give me is 12. All right, we could have used 24. We could have used 12 or 24. All right, or 36. That's getting a lot bigger, right? All right, there are a lot of different options, but 12 is the smallest. So I'm going to do 4 times 3. That would give me 12. And if I do it to the bottom, do it to the top. And then 6 times 2 gives me 12. If I do it to the bottom, do it to the top. All right, so 3 times 3 gives me 9. 4 times 3 gives me 12. 5 times 2 gives me, and 6 times 2 gives me. Okay. 9/12 plus 10/12. What's that going to equal? 19/12. And like it, someone out there just said, I'm going to put a little arrow here, just said that is called an improper fraction. All right, I do want us to label that for our notes. You don't have to label that on your homework, but I want us to label it on our notes. All right, that is an improper fraction. All right, in math class, we want to do everything real proper-like. Okay, so we can't leave it improper. All right, the easiest way to change that, a lot of y'all can do this in your head. I'm going to write down what it is that we're doing. We're taking 12, and we're seeing how many times it will go into 19. That's called division. Remember on Tuesday we talked about how a fraction bar is just a way to write division. Here we're seeing that happen again. All right, so Brianna, how many times will 12 go into 19?
12 will go into 19 once.
Once, and then 1 times 12 is? 12. When I subtract, what do I get, Brianna?
7.
7. Okay, Brianna, what am I going to do with that 7?
You're going to put the 7 as your numerator, 12 denominator, and your 1's the whole.
All right, perfect. So guys, you notice this is exactly the type of dividing we were doing at the beginning of the year. 1 was on top, my leftovers I put on the top of the fraction, and then 12 went on the bottom. So my actual answer here is going to be 1 and 7 twelfths. All right, you can see I did that work out to the side. If you can do it in your head, you can do it in your head. I'm okay with that. This is just so that I know where it came from. Because if I look back at my notes and I just had this magic 1 and 7 twelfths written down, I might not remember how we got it, okay? If you can do this in your head on your homework, you can do it in your head. You don't have to write it out. If you need to write it out, please, 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 write it out. All right. I want us to skip number 4 for right now. And I want us to look at number 5. All right, so we're going to do these a little out of order because I realized last period. Number 4, I think, is the hardest one on here. All right, so we're going to leave that for last. All right, so let's do number 5. For number 5, can I add those right now? No, they don't have the same denominator. What would be a good denominator for these, Kinsley? 8. So I'm going to multiply 4 times. 2 and 3 times. 2. If there's a way to just multiply one fraction, that's going to be the easiest method. Okay, so always check that small number, see if you can just multiply it. So I have 2. 3 times 2 is 6. 4 times 2 is 8. Remember, your whole number you're not changing or doing anything to. Plus 7 and 5/8. Okay. So now I can add those up. Let's add our fractions. 6 plus 5 is 11. The 8 just stays the 8. What about my whole numbers?
You add those two.
We add those two, Josh. What do we get?
9.
9. Okay, so I get 9 and 11 over 8. This looks really funky. All right, because it looks like a mixed number, but what else is happening there? It's also improper. And just a reminder, because I did not write this down and I meant to, so this is improper where big is on top. This is mixed, where it's all mixed up because it has a whole number and a fraction. So it's a mixed up number. All right. This one, though, is beyond mixed up. This one is messed up. I thought it was funny. All right. So this messed up fraction, we have a whole number, we have an improper, it's a little crazy looking. So what I want us to do is I want to take that 11/8 and let's just make that look good. Let's make that a mixed number. What is 11 over 8 going to change to, Brianna?
11 over 8 is going to be 1 and 3/8.
1 and 3/8. So I'm going to pause here. Okay, so I changed 11 over 8 to 1 and 3/8. Are there any questions on how she did that? 8 goes into 11 once with how many left over? 3. Okay. So that's an example of just doing that in your head. You can write it to the side if you want. All right, what was in front of that, though? A 9. So now I have 9, and then I have 1 and 3/8. So when I put that 9 and 1 together, we're going to add them up. What do I get, Macy? Thank you, Macy. So what's my final answer going to be? 10 and 3/8. Oh, so let me put a box around that one. Okay. Questions about number 5? Are we okay with that? All right. Let's go back up to number 4 then. Number 4. All right. Can I subtract those right now, Connor? What would be a good denominator, Connor? All right. 15 is a good number. Guys, 5 and 3, there's nothing smaller than just multiplying 5 and 3. If you can't think of a number, you can just use those to multiply each other. So I'm going to take the 3 and multiply it this side. And I'm going to take the 5 and multiply the other fraction. All right? If you've been staring at a number for a long time, it's probably best to just go ahead and multiply those opposite fractions. Alright, so I get 8. 3 times 1 is 3. 5 times 3 is minus 5. 2 times 5 is 3 times 5 is okay. When I start to try to subtract this, this says 3 minus 10. Can I do 3 minus 10? No, that's where I end up with a dilemma. So what we're basically going to do, y'all see how right here we took that 11/8 and we made it a mixed number? We're going to do that here. We're going to take 1 away from the whole piece. So I'm going to put minus 1 next to the underneath the 8. All right, so we're taking 1 away from the 8. Are we okay with that so far? All right, but what I'm adding to the 3 has to be a whole amount. That bottom number is the whole amount. How many were there? 15. So I'm actually adding 15 to the 3. Remember, I can't do plus 1 because I'm adding the whole thing, which is actually 15 little pieces. Are y'all okay with that? Mm-hmm. So we did minus 1 here, put plus 15 on top. So now my whole number becomes 7. 3 plus 15 is going to give me 18 over 15, and then the other fraction stays the same for right now. The number that I'm adding is always whatever is on the bottom. There's one like this on your homework, so I want to make sure. Do we have any questions about that? All right, so what is going to be my answer here when I do that subtraction? Danny? 2 holes? And 8 over 15. Again, guys, make sure when we're writing those fractions that the whole number is always in the middle of the fraction with the fraction next to it. All right, are there any questions about those notes? All right, that gives you an example of every type of problem. Ruby, what you got have a question about?
I'm confused on why you have to subtract and multiply. How when I read it, I was just writing.
It's okay. So you agree we can't do 3 minus 10? Right? So in subtraction, we borrow. But borrowing has to be a little different with fractions. We're used to taking 1 away from next door, correct?
Pardon this interruption. Myra, Laura, if you were in the building, please come to the student office. Myra, Laura, if you're in the building, please come to the student office.
All right, so are we okay with the subtracting 1 here? Because that we're used to in subtraction, correct? Now the problem is I can't just do plus 1 here because 8 was a whole number that I took it away from. So 15 is the entire amount that we're split it up into 15 pieces, right? So that's why I'm adding 15 here because that's like a whole pie that I'm adding. Okay, so we're going to take 1 away from the whole number and add a whole piece, which is always going to be whatever's on the bottom. Okay, so let's do one more like that. Are y'all okay with that? Because that one was kind of challenging. Let's do one more. I'm going to make it up on the fly. So hopefully I can make it work. All right, so we're going to add number 6 here. Let's do 19 and 2/5 minus 5 and 3/4. Okay. What is a good denominator for this problem? Aubrey. 20. 20 is going to be the best one. So I'm just taking the 4, multiplying one side, taking the 5, multiplying the other fraction. All right, so I have 19. 4 times 2 is 8 over 20 minus 5. 3 times 5 is 15 over 20. All right, so I'm going to pause here. We want to make sure we're flipped on the other side. We are adding the problem to our notes, okay? We're doing a number 6. All right, are we good so far? All right, so Ruby, I'm going to get you to help me out with this one since you had asked a question earlier to make sure we get it. All right, so can I do 8 minus 15 right now? No. So 19, what are we going to do to it? We're going to minus 1. We're going to borrow from the 19, so that we're going to minus 1. And if I take 1 away from 19, what is it that I have to add to 8? 20, because that's what was on the bottom. Perfect. And that's what you're going to do every time when you borrow for a fraction. Okay? So 19 minus 1 gives me 18. 8 plus 20 is 28 over 20 minus, and then we're leaving that fraction the same. All right? 28 minus 15. Macy? 13. Over 20. And 18 minus 5 is 13. Okay. Alright. So if you want to go ahead and get to work on your homework, you have the rest of the class period to get that done.